You're watching Tech Talk in affiliation with Tech for Techs. We're a community that supports independent trade with the help of vendors and distributors. We're live every Thursday at 8 p.m. London time, and we'll be streaming to Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, Google, TuneIn, and many more. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, and your host, Philip Griffiths.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Tech for Tech Tech Talk. This is a live show where we help your business grow, or are we just playing with retro games tonight? I'm not sure actually, but tonight, obviously, if you haven't figured out already, Ben's got his Amigas out, Ian's playing with his joystick, Peter's talking Pi, and we've got Paul pressing all the right buttons. So, yes, it's retro, and Ben's been bugging me to do this for about a year, so I had to give in and do it tonight. So, but first of all, this show is brought to you by...
From high-speed networking to enterprise storage, at Ortial we have a solution for you. We're a UK-based vendor specialising in computer hardware components, so whether you're powering a data centre or upgrading a laptop, we can help. At Ortial, you get a dedicated account manager that gets to know you and your business, supporting you from our head office in Yorkshire. All our products are OEM compatible, tested in-house to ensure performance. And what's more, we offer a 5-year warranty across all our internal SSD range, 3-year on our external SSD, and lifetime warranty on our memory and networking components. Want to find out more about our partner programme? Visit ortial.com.
Right, so that's the sponsor of today's show. I've just turned the chat on the side, guys, so if you do want to comment, let us know if you can hear us, if you can see us, and if you can see Ben's Amigas. And, well, I'm not going to comment more than that. So we do have Mark saying, evening, guys. So, hi, Mark, how are you doing? We've got Dan, I'm guessing that's Dan, or should I say Dan, who used to work at Target. I was going to say from Target. He's... had his last day yesterday, I think it was, and he's going to be doing Ventures New. So obviously, if you want to plug your new company, Dan, if you know where that's going to be yet, feel free. And if anyone else has got any comments, feel free to add them into the chat. We've also got Ali Cook. Is that Alison Cook for short? From Norfolk? I'm guessing it is. She's watching on YouTube for a change. Right. Okay, let's go around the room, see who we've got. So just introduce yourself. We're not going to bother with stories today and so forth. We're just going to go straight into the actual show. Unless you guys want to do stories, that's up to you. So let's go to you first, Ben.
Yeah, evening, Phil. I didn't realise it was a year that I've been bugging you to do a retro show, but there you go.
Yeah. It feels like a year as well.
We're all mutual retro lovers in the same right? Yeah, I'm Ben Ashcroft. I run Bugs and Bikes Computing just outside of sunny Lincoln. Do mainly laptop sales, more going into sort of trade sales for laptops to shops now. Still do some repair work, but yeah, it's some gaming PCs and desktops. But yeah, it's very much all about laptops at the moment and trade sales. I suppose if there was a tip of the day, very appropriate for tonight, it's invest in retro tech. Retro tech is going through a bit of a boom at the moment. Values are going a bit crazy and have done for the last year or two especially, but I think there's a set rise and rise a bit more and more as time goes on, really. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you for that. Ben, let's move over to Ian then. Ian, if you want to introduce yourself and let us know a bit about yourself.
Hello everyone, my name's Ian. I work at IPC Solutions in sunny Malden in Essex. I sell computers and laptops, repair, refurbish, and sell anything else tech-wise. Also build gaming PCs. So, yeah, I can do all that for everybody, to the trade and to the public. Yeah, I've got my little C64 Mini out, which is cool. And yeah, retro. It's going to be an interesting conversation tonight. No tips this year, apart from look out for the Ryzen 5th gen bargains. Now that 7 series is out, I think prices might come down a little bit for those 5th gen chips, and they're still good processors.
Yeah, that's a good point there with the Ryzen processors, but I have a feeling they're going to keep the value, to be honest, because of the DD4 memory, or DDR4 memory, should I say, because the new Ryzen chips need DDR5 so only. So I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of people hanging on, but I might be wrong. Let's move over to Peter then, Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter from
Didn't sound right, did it?
ScanStation Computers and Security. We've got a retail store and we do managed services and now security installations on the south coast, just outside Bognor Regis. Loving the retro theme tonight. As Ben was saying, invest in your retro tech. Everything's gone up in price. I wish I'd kept all my old Amiga gear. So if you've got anything in the attic, go and have a look. It's probably worth a lot of money right now.
Okay, that's pretty good. Thank you, Peter. And on to Paul. So, Paul, tell us about yourself.
I'm not as exciting as the others. I'm Paul Webb. I unofficially go by the job title of technical legend. Seems to make people laugh, that one. I like it. I've been into tech since I was 5. My dad used to work for British Telecom, and I don't know why, but he used to bring home stuff. He used to bring home circuit boards, and he used to bring home all sorts. He brought home a foghorn one time. But yeah, my dad got me into computers when I was 5. I'm just about to turn 40. I live in Basildon, of all places, Basildon, unless we don't all talk like Towie. Our business is based in Burnham-on-Crouch, which is a stone throw from Ian, where he is in Malden. Basically, I cover all aspects of IT. I've been doing it now for 20 years. The only thing I don't really touch on too much is databases. But yeah, I'll try and turn my hand to anything when I can.
Okay, that sounds pretty good. Let's just quickly go to chat again, guys. If you are watching and you want us to shout you out, then obviously tell us who you are and where you are, and I'll give you a shout out. So we've got David Withers, who's normally on the show as well a lot of the time. And he's saying hi, everyone, from Scorpion Computers. We've also got Evening All from Richard Overfield as well. We've got Mark saying, let's have a look. Still got my original C64 and 1541 floppy drives from 1983. It makes a difference to quieter days in the shop.
Quality.
Yeah. You're showing all the kids what come in the shop what the save icon actually really is. Right, so, and we've also got another one asking, and it says Facebook user, have you had dinner before?
Have I had dinner? No. I'm pretty hungry, to be honest with you. In fact, I'm actually starving. No, dinner hasn't been done yet. I've not got a takeaway coming tonight. I'm craving a Chinese, because that one that turned up the other day when I was on air was that's actually pretty special. I really enjoyed my dinner, even though I was being watched.
That's pretty good. Right. Follow Facebook user and any other Facebook users out there. If you want to click the link I've just put in the chat, I'll also put it on the screen for you there. Scrolling across the bottom, if you basically type that address in or click the link, it'll allow your name to be shown in chat to everyone. It's generally a Facebook group thing where it likes to hide your details unless you agree to terms and conditions and all this, that, and the other. So feel free, if you want to click that link and sign your life away to us, then, well, that's totally up to you. Right, so before we go any further, we have literally got 2 days to go before the nominations finish on the Tech for Tech Awards. That's basically where you can nominate yourself or someone else, whether you're a vendor, distributor, whatever. Get those nominations in because there isn't long to go. And I'm going to put that address on the screen for you so you can see it there. So basically, nominations will get basically finalized on the 1st, and then after that, a few days after, we'll then be sticking all the people who have been nominated onto the website for you to all vote for your favorite out of all the ones being nominated, and then we'll announce on the beginning of December on a live show who the actual winners are, as well as finalists. So make sure you get nominated. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. Just sign in the details, If you want to nominate yourself, you can. There's no need to do it 100 times because you only need one nomination to get listed. So don't just keep going on there and spamming it like some people have been. So it doesn't make a difference at the moment how many times you do it, as long as you've done it once. Okay. So saying that, Ben, how many times have you nominated yourself?
I've not at all, Phil. I'm quite sort of impartial and biased, and I think votes should be completely organic.
We all believe you, Ben. We really do. Yeah, I bet you've got some sort of macro set up on your Amigas to keep nominating yourself every few hours.
I think I did have it'd be like 1 vote a day going by the speed of them, Phil.
Right. Okay. Let's turn that chat message off now. So let's have a look. So we've got David saying he wish he could have been on the show. He wanted to show off his original PS1. Is a PS1 really classed as retro now? I don't know.
This is one of my questions, actually.
Yeah.
This is one of the things I raised, actually. And it'd be great to open this out to the floor. It might be too... no, we do it now. I had this... I said to Ben, when does a console become officially retro? How many years old does said item have to be? Could be console, could be any gaming apparatus, but when is it officially classed as retro?
It's a good question. I was going to say 20 years, but then that obviously includes a PS1 and PS2 then, doesn't it?
When the plastic becomes brittle.
And yellow.
Yeah. It's brittle and yellow, that's it. Proper.
Yeah, so it's a good question. So, guys, if you're in chat, how old do you think something should be to be classed as a retro? It's a bit like antiques, I suppose. Isn't it like supposed to be 100 years or something to be officially an antique or something? But you could say the same things about like movies and stuff. You could call how old does it have to be a classic? Some people call the Lord of the Rings a classic and Star Wars, or do you go as far back as, I don't know, Charlie Chaplin and so forth? How far do you go back as classic?
Can I just say, Dan's got a great point there about the Master System being a retro system. Master System, Mega Drive, yeah, they were proper good machines back in the day. And
I class them as retro. They're that generation. Six kind of like when things go from 8-bit, 16-bit, that's where you should class it.
Good point there. Right.
Yeah, but some people don't. Some people don't class any console at all as retro. Whereas I would. Yeah. But it's just, it's a hard question actually to answer.
I think it's a generational thing.
How far back do you go? Do you class Windows 95 as retro then? Because obviously that's older than a PS2 and PS1, I think. So is that retro? You really call Windows retro? So that's a good question. So and talking about retro, it's also a few years since. Do you class like apps, like programs, as retro when they get to a certain age? For example, let's have a look. When was it now? Here we go. I've got it here somewhere. In 1998, was it 1998? No, 1983. I'm getting the complete wrong decade there. Microsoft releases the first version of Microsoft Word. Is that classed as retro?
I'd say so. Even Word 2003 is retro. I actually found that I'd done an audit the other day for a new business customer we picked up. I found Office 2000 and Office 2003 on their machines.
Quality.
Quite amusing by that.
That's crazy. So for anyone who wants to know about what I've just said there in history, there's a little thing sliding across the bottom. But yeah, 1983 when the first version of Word came out. And the thing what made it unique, it was the first word processor to be able to use with a mouse. Yes, mice haven't been around forever. So keyboards was the main input device for many of years. Right, okay. Let's go around the room and... Oh, sorry, what was that, Paul?
Remember light pens? Ben will remember these.
Yeah, I remember them.
Yeah, that was kind of like Amiga generation. I think it was you pointed at the TV or you'd done something with it, and it's like instead of a mouse. I remember them existing, but I don't remember a lot about them.
Was they on the old Amstrads?
I think they might have been. They were
micros, because we had one of them at school when I was in primary school, and that was God. When was that? 80. Yeah, about 80, 83.
We had a turtle. Do you ever have a turtle on your
Yeah,
BBC
I
Micros?
remember
So
that.
you would program it
That's
how
right.
far forward, left, right, and if you had a fancy one that had a pen in it, you could put the pen up and down and draw on a piece of paper on the floor, or you could just run the program that did it on the screen. I think it was called Dart, maybe, perhaps.
Something like that. It was like my first CNC, isn't it? Really, that's what CNC is. Really.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sorry, Phil, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
Well, looks like David likes you, Ian. Apparently, you're retro. I'm not sure how he's going by on ages for that, but apparently you are retro.
Technically speaking.
We've also, apparently my dad's commenting on this one. He must be watching the show tonight. He says retro's 20 years, but not 40 years old. So I'm not sure exactly what he means by that, but there we go. My first PC, or not PC, computer would have been a BBC Micro, if I remember correctly, what I remember using. So a lot of fond memories back then of playing the original Elite in wireframe format. That was interesting days, and I remember getting it for the Amiga, and it didn't seem as good, to be honest with you, for whatever reason. Maybe because they filled the blocks in, I don't know. But there we go. Right, so even for Inverness, sorry, just going through the chat. So even for Inverness, and that's Robert. We've got David saying, "I'm bringing Mavis." Beacon and Encarta to the next retro show. Well, that's an interesting one. Yeah. So there we go. So Robert's putting a link on for YouTube on there. Not sure exactly. Oh, here's some retro. Well, yeah, we can't really watch it while we're on live, but we'll have a look at that. And Dan's saying he remembers Encarta. Yeah, I remember Encarta. God, how many discs was it on? Too many. Anyway, let's go around the room and see what everyone's got to offer. So first thing is Ben has got his Amigas out, so I'm guessing that's what he's going to be showing off. So let's stick him on full screen and hope he's not too embarrassed when he's got his Amigas out.
Oh, thank you. Can I just say, first of all, Phil, thank you very much to your dad for saying retro is not 40 years old, because I'm fast approaching, going to be 40 in a couple of months' time, and I don't really want to be classed as retro, so I'm quite happy not to be. So one of the things we want to talk about is like the computers that we've owned over the years. Going right back to, obviously I was born in 82. First computer we ever owned was a Sinclair ZX81 with 1 kilobyte of RAM in it. I don't have many memories of that, because I was only about 3 or 4 years old, I think, when we moved over to what began a lifelong love of the Commodore machines. We had a Commodore 64 when I was about 4 or 5. I think we kept that maybe 6, 7, 8 years. And that took us to the early 90s. We moved on to one of these bad boys, the Commodore Amiga 1200. It's not the same one I had when I was a kid. I'm most sort of upset about that. I would have loved to have the exact same machine that I had as a kid, but we sold it, and then we bought a 386 Packard Bell, and then a 486 Packard Bell. We don't talk about that because that's all PC and modern stuff after that. So, but I mean, in the last sort of 5 years or so, I've really got back into collecting retro stuff, specifically Commodores, and very specifically Commodore Amigas. In my opening, in the tip, I sort of said the prices on retro kits is really sort of shoot up and increase in value, and none more so than the Commodore Amigas. They were basically, for those that didn't know, they were around from about 87 to about 95-ish, up against the PC market for a good while, and they were well ahead of PCs for a good while in time as well. But it's just basically down to a few sort of complete screw-ups on Commodore's behalf. They had piss poor management, basically. Rested on the laurels and brought out machines that weren't quite as advanced as they should have been for the time, sort of thing. But they got seen as a bit of gaming machines, which for their day, they're brilliant gaming machines, and they're still brilliant gaming machines now. But they didn't get taken seriously, unfortunately. Even the sort of big box Amiga systems like this one, 1000, didn't get taken seriously, and they were too expensive. I mean, like your Amiga 1000, that was the first model they released, and it was way, way overpowered when it came out. Nobody knew what to do with all this technology. But as you can see, it's got a bit of a game sort of running on it. It might work if I press a few buttons, hopefully. or I might not. I might not have plugged the joystick in properly, not to worry. I can come back to that one. Yeah, I've got a couple of the Amigas on show. Won't be a second.
Yeah, he's had these set up all day, ready to show off, and now they decide not to work.
I have. Well, I mean, basically, this one here, the Amiga 1200, is about 5 years newer than this old bulky Amiga 1000. It's far better. It's got more memory. As standard, it would have had a 14 megahertz processor. That's real rocket fuel stuff, that. But this one's actually been upgraded to a 40 megahertz processor now. Yeah, no, it's really burning rubber there, you know. This basically had like a better graphics chip, better sound, has some really good sort of quality stuff on it. So like this game here, we've got Stardust. It's basically like an old sort of asteroids game. Up thing. You got like a spaceship, have to destroy all these different rocks and get power-ups and stuff like that. Get bigger guns, all that sort of thing. You know, it's very retro. It's like Space Invaders, or not Space Invaders, Asteroids rather, but brought into the 90s with sort of super advanced graphics. For the time, it was used ray tracing, that sort of thing. That's what I say when I say the Amigas were very much sort of ahead of their time. You know, so yeah, that's about it really.
Pretty good. I do like the sound of those mechanical keyboards.
Yeah, the old
so
clicky
that's
keyboards
it. So
you don't get nowadays.
So kids of today were spending £200-300 on a keyboard. Just think they're nothing new. They were around long before you were born. And they were the standard in the day. And then they got the cheapo ones, which weren't. Right. Okay. So let's go on to Ian then. So Ian, let's talk about what you've got to show us. Or well, depends on what you're going to show us, really, I suppose. It's a strange one, especially when we've already talked about your joystick. So let me stick you on full screen so we can see what you got. Here we go.
Well, tonight it's I've got the C64 Mini out, which is obviously the Android emulation version of the old C64. It was the first ever computer that I owned. Me and my brother got it for Christmas. It must have been when I was about 13, I think. And my parents, we had the whole ensemble. We had the monitor TV and the 1541 disc drive. We had that as well, the massive floppy disk. It was very exciting. I think when we got that, it was the first foray into gaming that I had, and it was some of my fondest memories. A few of my mates had one as well, so it was quite good for swapping games. And going around and having gaming sessions and stuff in between skating and things like that. I had that for many years actually, and the one thing I never moved up to was the Amiga. And I've never ever owned an Amiga in my life, apart from an emulation on the PC. But I never owned one. I went from, I think, the C64, and I'm just looking at the release dates of the consoles, and I think I dabbled in the Master System when that was first released, and then I went straight onto the Genesis Mega Drive, or Genesis as you will then. A friend of mine at the time was a video game dealer, and he used to import consoles from Japan and America, and he always used to have them months before they were released here. So and I just remember him getting a Neo Geo, and the Neo Geo just wiped the floor with everything, in my opinion, to be honest. And I would class that as a retro console. Along with the Sega Mega Drive, etc. Then I went up to the Saturn and the PlayStation, as most of us did. Dreamcast, which was, I class that as a retro console myself now. One of the best consoles ever released, in my opinion. And I've had most of the consoles through my life, but the only computer system that I had was the C64, and we had that for absolute years, and I just remember playing that to death. And I've played it on my PC since, because I got into PCs about 18, 19, and when I started working at the council, and the guy there used to sell me all his second-hand PCs for next to nothing, and I just started PC gaming. But alongside that, we still had our C64, and I think we put that in the loft, and then my parents said, "You need to get rid of it," and I, to this day, wish I hadn't, because I had absolutely everything. Much like Mark said, he's got his disc drive and everything. We had the full ensemble. I think we had the upgraded. There was an upgrade you could get for the C64 as well, and I think I remember buying that. And it was just really good. And then I suppose consoles just took over, and I've been a sort of console gamer ever since. I've still got PS5 now. All through the GameCubes. GameCube was a great console as well. I think I used to like the underdog consoles, like the Saturn and things like that. I thought they were brilliant consoles. It's a shame that Sega stopped making consoles, really. But yeah, the C64 will be the fondest memory for some of the best gaming sessions I've ever had in my life. And yeah, playing this tonight, I looking back when you think about the gameplay now and you think about the consoles and the graphical advancements that we've got, it's really hard to play on the old Competition Pro joystick, which this is not a bad variant of it, to be honest. It's really hard to play, especially when you're so used to using like Xbox controllers and things like that. But yeah, C64, best retro computer ever,
in your opinion.
in my opinion.
Yeah,
I've never had an Amiga, and that's my biggest regret, not having
I
an
think
Amiga.
Ben will argue with that one, but yeah. But yeah, and I never had C64, so I can't comment too much on that one. From the BBC, went to Amiga 500, I think. So yeah, so C64 missed out on that one, and I was never a fan of the consoles. To be honest with you, I always preferred a PC type system or a desktop system, to be honest. But there we go. Right, let's move over to Peter. So Peter, tell us what you've got hiding in the background, just over your shoulder then.
So I've actually had to raid my son's retro collection. He's got his old PS2 Silver Edition. I probably don't class that as retro, but my 15-year-old son thinks it's the oldest thing ever.
It's older than him.
Yeah. Personally, I'm an Amiga person like Ben. I had fully tricked out Amiga. I don't know where it is. I think I got rid of it. I hope I haven't. I hope one day to find it in my parents' loft somewhere, maybe. But my first computer usage, I think, was at school. Like some of the others, BBC Micro. Friends had Commodore 64s. Had a friend that had an Amstrad C464, which had a built-in cassette deck, which was quite fancy, having it built into the machine rather than a separate cassette player. And then our first family piece computer was an Amiga 500. Fell in love with that. We pushed the boat out a bit. We had the 0.5 megabyte RAM upgrade in there, and even had an external secondary floppy drive. So we had 2 floppy drives, which was great for doing game copies and came in really handy when playing Monkey Island 2, which I think came on 11 floppy disks. So yeah, I stuck the Amiga for quite a long time. I don't think I've ever owned a games console, but my wife has had games consoles, my kids have had games consoles. But I've always had computers, and I had my Amiga for a long, long time. Upgraded to a 1200, modded the hell out of that thing, put it in a server tower case, had a graphics card in there, keyboard adapter, hard drive, CD writer, and then I moved out of home. I'm not quite sure where it is, so really missing that because, as Ben said, it's probably worth quite a lot of money right now. So I'm sort of playing with one of these at the moment. This is a Raspberry Pi based arcade machine. So you buy this as a kit. It all comes flat packed, and all you add is a Raspberry Pi, an SD card, a USB Type-C power supply, and game ROMs for all the games that you legally own, of course. So in there is a Raspberry Pi. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, it looks pretty good.
A little interface sits on here, and you basically build this. It's got a little 8-inch LCD screen in there. So these are quite cool little kits. If you don't want to get too involved, there's videos on how to build it, and you just add the Pi, and they're quite straightforward to build, really. So if you just want to tinker, that's a good little kit.
It's amazing how a little small thing like a Pi can power what was once a huge PC.
Oh, fantastic.
Nice one. Let's go on to Paul then. So Paul, well, I'm not going to ask what's behind you because I can see your son running around. So if you want to tell us about, your history with computers,
Right. So basically, as I said, it's my dad's fault. Well, it's both my parents' fault. When I was a kid, we had one of those. It plugged into the TV. It was a bat and ball game. You'd have a line up one side and a line up the other side, and there'd be a little thing that goes from side to side. We had that. Then we had a Commodore 64 with a tape deck. We weren't flash. We didn't have floppy disk. That plugged into the TV. That was quite good because if your friend had a game, you could copy it on high speed dub in your stereo. Then I moved on to Amiga. As an Amiga 500 with the memory upgrade as well. That was the Cartoon Classics pack. I don't know if everyone remembers that. It came with Lemmings, Simpsons, Captain Planet, and a graphics program called Deluxe Paint. I can actually remember the advert on the TV because I'm sure it had sunshine on the right, sunshine on a rainy day. I'm sure that was on the advert. So we had that. I had that for a good few years. I know Oki dot matrix printer that my dad acquired when he worked at BT. That was quite handy. Moved on to PC when I was 11 or 12. I ended up breaking my dad's PC, running things I shouldn't, and it deleted loads of stuff. That's where my career and my interest in repairing computers kind of took off. So went from PCs. I acquired a SunSpark, which was running Solaris. Then went back to PCs. Been on PCs ever since. Never really been into consoles, so to speak. The only console that I own is a PlayStation 3, and the only reason I own that is because my mum won it in a competition. My gaming history, my retro history isn't as exciting, unfortunately. But I've had fun. I've acquired other computers in my time. My old primary school where my mum worked and thrown out some old computers, and we ended up with a number of BBC Micros and an Acorn A3000. So hopefully they're in the loft of my dad's. I've got a couple of Amigas, a couple of Commodore 64s. I've got I think it's an Atari. It's got a cartridge in the top and it's got a keyboard on it. It's quite strange. I can't remember the model of that. And I've also got an Apple IIe, which is when Apple used to have the colour logo. One of my clients actually gave that to me a couple of years ago. It actually still works. I've got a whole load of kit to go with that. So yeah, that is pretty much me. And when Ben said a minute ago that it's about to turn 40, I looked at his birthday. Well, Ben, I'm 5 days older than you. I was 5 days old when you came into this world, mate. So yeah, that's me.
I don't know. I think we're having a competition to see who's the oldest here. I'm not going to answer the question though. Right, okay. So let's get a little bit more involved. What game, let's say, have you had in the past? Let's say for your Amiga or whatever console it is that came with the most floppy disks.
That's probably going to be, I think it was Beneath a Steel Sky on Amiga. I think that was maybe 18 or 19 discs.
Does Windows 95 count? Something like that as a game.
I wouldn't mind actually, but we had Beneath the Steel Sky in our Amiga 1200 back in the day, back in the 90s, when hard drives were still hundreds and hundreds of pounds. And I played that game most of the way through, and I just gave up trying to complete it because every time you move from one screen to the next, you have to swap floppy disks to it 5-6 times.
That's crazy. What about yourself, Ian, Peter, Paul? What games can you think of?
I think I'm not too sure. Mark might know this answer. Dragon's Lair. I seem to remember that coming on floppy. I'm sure that was a C64 game, and it was about 8 of the big 5.25-inch floppy disks, which are big. And I seem to remember that coming on about 8 discs in a box. And I remember it failing so many times loading, and it was a real graphically intensive game for back then. Yeah, them ones. And I'm pretty sure it's that. And it took forever to load. I remember taking hours to load because it was such a big game. Really, really good for its time. And I think it was Dragon's Lair was the one where you had the sword and you had to kill the dragon. And it was like a adventurous game, I think. I might be wrong, but I think that was the biggest one that I had. And Manic Miner, which was the two-sided tape cassette, but it was like a long C90 cassette, and that took forever to load. That was a quality game though, but that often failed on mine. Get to the last minute.
Yeah, that was the worst thing about Commodore 64s was when you didn't have a disk drive, just with a tape drive. You get 95% of the way through loading the game, and the tape would unravel. You'd have to go all the way back to the start and spend 10 minutes on the button thing again. It drove me absolutely potty.
Rewind the tape again and everything. Oh god, that was the days.
Look at the transfer feed of a Commodore tape. I was bored eating my lunch at work the other day, and I went browse Wikipedia, and I was looking at transfer speeds of different things. And one of them was a cassette tape. It was like 8 bits per second or something stupid like that. Mental.
It's quite funny because talking about the whole retro thing tonight, you go back to these old floppy disks, and you show a kid or someone young that nowadays, and they just say it's the save icon. You got the old 5 1/4-inch floppy disks. And I mean, us guys all remember these, but no one's going to remember these for the life.
Discs were floppy,
yeah, actual proper floppy disks.
It's like a meme now, isn't it? You print out the save icon. You've got a save icon. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's surprising how much they used to fit on a disc as well, to be honest, considering the size of them. But yeah, when you get into 15 discs long, it's a bit of a pain, I must admit. I think Monkey Island took quite a few. I think that must have been 10 or 11.
11, I think. And you'd have a spare one for your save games.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's the same
I got
as
that save. Yeah, I needed a separate disc to save your games on. I was forgetting about that bit, but yeah.
Those are good games. Like Leisure Suit Larry and things like that.
Oh, Leisure Suit Larry.
Old school.
They say the world's becoming a much smaller place, and it's so true because even you look at sort of peripherals for like these old systems. Nowadays, you've got like a 4 gig RAM stick, and it's like this is a 4 meg RAM expansion.
You say that my first PC had a 1.02 gig quantum hard disk, and it's quite funny because I look at my keys now, and it's like 32 gig, 64 gig, and that's just on my keys. It's absolutely insane. It's like 240 gig SSD, and it blows my head apart. It's great progression.
Yeah, you do get a lot of space these days, that's for sure. But back then, we thought that was amazing, having loads of space, having a hard drive you could plug into your Amiga 500 or whatever. That was a lot of space back then. But
I'm trying to remember who it was who said back in the day, you'll never need more than 1 gigabyte of space on your hard drive.
I remember that. That was one of the big players, wasn't it?
Was that Steve Jobs that said that, perhaps?
Someone like that. Yeah. Was it when he built the first Apple?
That was it. Yeah. He said you'll never need more than 1 megabyte of RAM or something like that.
Yeah. Well, that's
in the next month they bought a PC out that had 2 meg.
Yeah.
Someone put that advert on the advert for selling the PC.
Apparently, it was Bill Gates according to this.
Was it 128k or something?
640k.
No, okay,
640k. I don't think it was Bill Gates. Reading this, Bill Gates denied it. Apparently, it was someone else, but 640k. Cool.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Proper nostalgic.
That's it. Okay, let's go to PC only for a second. Sorry, Ben. When I say PC, I'll say Windows-based PC. What's the oldest one you probably had? As in, what sort of speed we're talking about? As in processor, how much RAM, and so forth.
For me, it would have been a Intel Pentium. It was one of the P54C chips. It was 100 meg. But I also had, because it's kind of comparable, a Cyrix 6X86. It said it was a 150 plus, but it didn't run at 150. It was some stupidly low speed. It just blagged it.
Pentium rated, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. It was like a
IBT did the same thing with a Win chip.
Yeah, that's it.
It's I'm still kind of happy here, Phil, because Amigas can run PC bridgeboard cards, so you can still run Windows out of Amiga, so it's fine.
Is this where we kick Ben off the show?
The oldest PC that we actually owned was a 386 SX16 Packard Bell. But the oldest PC I've actually got here in the office now when I did my Tech for Techs tour last year, Eurosoft very kindly donated it. It's an old IBM 5150 with a Intel 8086 processor. I think it's about 4 or 5 megahertz.
Okay, so that's pretty old. I think the oldest one, well, I say owned, obviously my dad's back then was, I think it was 133 megahertz. I think it was a Packard Bell, but I might be wrong on the brand, to be honest with you. But
P133 chips.
so it was a P1, but I think the first one I bought for myself was 333 megahertz Pentium 2, if I remember right.
I remember I bought 200 meg was fast.
Yeah.
If you had a Packard Bell back in the day, you'll never forget it. They were appalling. We had 2 of them, and they were just horrible things. So unexpandable and just not that reliable. The 486 one, we added like an extra 4 meg of RAM and a CD drive. But no, horrible things.
CD drives, they're going retro now as well, aren't they?
Yeah,
They're getting old school.
Yeah.
The first PC we had that my dad bought was the Pentium 166 MMX.
Or MMX.
Gateway computers from Ireland.
That's probably
and I remember at the time it was he bought the most expensive one. It was £1,500.
Yeah.
I think it had 2 meg of RAM. And I used to play Championship Manager on it all the time for my mate. It was great. But I always remember that going, wow,
Quake was
mega.
Quake was my game.
Quake, brilliant game.
Quake.
For anyone who knows me, they know I sell mostly Dell products, and I actually got this a couple of weeks ago off one of my contacts. It's an old Dell Latitude XPI running an original Pentium 133 with, I think it's 20 megabytes of RAM and a 1.2 gig hard drive, and it still works. And has
I was just saying, but it still works, doesn't it?
It still works, and it's got the very original factory restore Windows 95 on it.
Nice.
Quality, absolute quality.
The battery shot's a plot, but everything else is good.
I don't know about the battery.
That's absolutely crazy, isn't it? So I don't know what sort of storage is on that. What is it?
1.2 gig hard drive.
1.2.
Yeah.
Gig.
Yeah.
Back in the days of IDE discs.
Yeah, ID disk, floppy drive, and I think it's got an external CD drive with it as well.
Well, with an external CD drive.
Was that about the time when they released zip drives?
I remember Zip 100.
Do you remember those?
Parallel port connection.
Yeah, they had the blue. They were blue, weren't they?
Yeah, the one
Really nice colours.
250s as well, I think. The super expensive 250 one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The LS one, is it the LS
I
one?
had an LS120. They were superior. You could put a floppy disk in that drive as well.
Yeah.
LS120.
Wow. When was it the PCI MCA cards came out?
Well, they were
After that?
no, they were very early, because I mean the Amiga 1200's got a PCMCA slot.
Right.
They were early 90s, like about 91, 92, and they stuck about till about
fourth and fifth gen.
Oh, really? That late?
Well, they became express cards, didn't they? The standard changed a few times.
One minute, right? Okay, they changed between Type 1 and Type 2 and Type 3.
Yeah.
An express card,
Yeah, pretty much the same thing.
US Robotics ones, 56K. We had V90, Flex, and was it X2? Was that the other technology?
Maybe. There was a V92, but no ISP ever ended up supporting it.
And in Windows, I think, was it multi-link, where you can have 2 of them together?
Yeah.
The old PCMCA hard drive.
Yeah, there you go.
340 megabytes.
Nice.
Still
about 500 quid now.
Yeah, that's for the old Amiga 1200 as well. It's still in good working condition.
Just going back to the Neo Geos, one of my friends at primary school had one of those, and we all thought it was a don for it. But look how much they're going for now. I had a look on eBay after it got mentioned, because I thought, oh, blimey, Neo Geos, that's going back a bit. They're worth a penny. And I just see that someone's just piped up about the turbo button.
Yeah, turbo button on the front of the PC. It was a sort of a lot of people thought you press the button to make it go faster, but it was actually the other way around. You press the button to make it go slower.
So drop the clock speed for compatibility for older software.
Older software, so it didn't run too fast. That's it. So it was It was a bit of a marketing ploy, really, because it was as standard. It's going at turbo speed, but you actually press the turbo button to slow it down. But yeah, crazy times.
The turbo graphics was a good one as well.
What was that? Sorry,
the turbo graphics, if you could get one, because that was like I think that was a Japanese only console.
Do you remember 3D
and
FX?
they go for a pretty penny.
Ian, do you remember 3DFX cards, the Voodoo cards? Do you
I
remember
do. It was my first ever expansion card in my own PC.
Where you had to plug the graphics, the VGA into the 3DFX card, and then out again.
Yeah, and the cards were they were massive, weren't they? They were about that big. They were humongous things.
Yeah, so you had to have a separate 2D card, a separate 3D card, and connect. I remember getting the Voodoo Banshee, which was combined together.
Wasn't as good though.
That was elite tier. That was.
If you were really good, you'd have the 2 Voodoos in SLI. That's where SLI started. It was like a 34-pin, almost like a floppy drive ribbon. Mm-hmm. And the Voodoo 1 and the Voodoo 2, you could SLI both of those. You know, so if you were really good, you'd have your 2D card, your 2 3DFXs with all the loop cables out the back, like Paul was saying. A lot of noise on your screen because of all these loop cables, but 3D was brilliant.
Oh, it's fantastic. And when you done Quake with that, it just took it to another level, didn't it?
Yeah,
it was amazing. I'll tell you a console that I had as well that I bought back in Rumbelows when it was in Malden.
Oh,
do you remember the Jaguar?
Yeah, the Atari Jaguar. I remember
handheld, was it?
Very underrated console that was. And I'll tell you another one that you might not have. This I only saw. My mate had one of these around the corner from me. Does everyone remember a Dragon 32?
Yeah.
It rings bells.
Rings a bell, but I don't recall.
And it had a joystick. It had this really weird. It had like this joystick that was really long. About that, it had a thick thing, but then it went really short, like a handle. But the actual joystick was really thin with a small knob on the end, so you literally controlled it like that. It was like you play the thing like that. It was the weirdest console. There's one game that was really good. The rest were utter rubbish. There's a really weird console, but that seemed to. I don't know where he got that from. I think his dad bought it back again, probably from abroad. But the Dragon 32, weird. Dragon 64.
I'll tell you what else is probably one to watch, a console to watch in the next couple of years, because the prices of them are starting to increase now, is the old Super Nintendo and the old SNES.
Oh, yes, going back a bit.
Yeah, they're a nice bit of retro kit. Biggest problem with them, though, the slots where you put the cartridges, the pins used to always go out of alignment, and you had to solder them and sort it back in again.
And get the NTSC version if you can, because it runs at 60 hertz. That was the one to get, was the Japanese or the American console.
Yeah, you had all the Mario games, they were like really cool, and then you had like stuff like Mortal Kombat and Killer Instinct, that sort of thing.
I think it's probably, I would say, the SNES was from sales alone probably the best ever home console. I mean, the N64 was really good. It had GoldenEye, but it never really took up. But the SNES was just on another level.
The N64 not much. I didn't like the N64 at all. It just never appealed.
I wasn't allowed one. I wasn't allowed anything like that. We had no money.
It's probably too modern, though.
Yeah, it's for the youngsters, wasn't it?
Yeah,
my little brother had one.
That was like the next generation of console, you know, the N64, the PS1. I mean, Commodore stuff, the 80s and that, and yeah, that was like the heyday. So it's
the 3D was coming in, wasn't it?
Yeah,
for sure. It's, I mean, Team 17 was like one of the leading developers, software developers in Amiga for Commodore.
Yeah,
Team 17 and Bullfrog were like probably the two biggest software developers. They started doing like Alien Breed 3D. They started playing with 3D games in Amiga. It just
Peter Molyneux. Is that his name?
Peter Molyneux, yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Do you remember Syndicate, where you controlled the four cyborgs?
Yeah, and kill
a Gauss gun.
Yeah, I used to love Syndicate. I think they did an expansion for it as well.
That was the American Revolt or something.
Yeah, that was it.
And there's Syndicate Wars, which similar idea, but almost it was crap.
Yeah, that's
didn't they try to make 3D or something? Was it early 3D?
PlayStation. It wasn't that great.
And you'd walk around with one of them would have the Persuadertron going, and you'd end up with everyone following you, and they'd pick up the weapon. You kill someone with a weapon, and you Persuadertron people would pick it up, and you'd shoot, And you know all these persuaders trying to people all shooting at the same time.
And then you jump in the car, run them all down, and take all
That's
the
right,
weapons.
that's it. The funny shaped car that looked like a beetle.
Yeah, there's lots of classic games back then. We'd probably spend all night just talking about all the games. I've always been into the strategy thing, so I like stuff like your Populous, Powermonger, and obviously when Windows came out, Civ and stuff like that. But yeah. Right, let's go on to something slightly different regarding this. Is there money in refurbishing these things, and how easy is it to refurbish these things? I don't know. I think Ben might be the best person to ask them that one.
There's money to be made in them, but you've got to be savvy what you buy. A lot of people, and it's the worst thing. A lot of people are sort of buying, or I say buying, they're pulling old machines out of the loft. No disrespect, Paul. They're leaving them up there 20, 25, 30 years, pulling them out of the loft, chucking them on eBay, asking top money for them, and they're just trying to cash in and make a quick buck. It's not the way. I mean, the biggest thing to watch out for, certainly with the Amiga range, like big box Amigas, they've got the batteries. The Amiga 500 Plus has got the batteries. If they've not been snipped out the board already, they'll leak all over the board, kill the board. I've got an Amiga 4000 that's been a 2-year plus restoration project. Hopefully I'll have it on next year's show. That's battery damage, and that was just horrendous. That's gone down to a fellow Tech for Tech guy, Zach Smith. He's working his magic and spending a lot of time trying to get that back together again and back to working order. But there's definitely money to be made, and if you find stuff like your old Commodore stuff with expansion cards, the expansion cards can worth as much as the machines. A good Amiga 1200 now will set you back sort of 300, 350, 400 pounds. Something like the O3O accelerator card that's in it, you'll spend at least another 350 quid on that. Because they're very proprietary cards. You don't get them anymore. The cheaper and sort of less authentic way to do it is buy the more modern cards like the Total Fire accelerator cards, but you pay your price, you get what you get. It's a nice modern card. But personally, I like period correct stuff. It's like I've got the original RAM expansions, I've got the original hard drives. So, yeah.
The thing I loved about the Amiga the most wasn't the actual the gameplay or the OS or anything. It's what they named their chips.
Yes. yeah.
Fat Angus.
Fat Agnes, Denise, Paul, Gary. Yeah. And they had a thing going with the B52s as well. I don't know if you know about this, Paul. All the different Amiga motherboards had code names that were named after B52 songs. So the Amiga 500 was like Lobster printed on the motherboard. I can't remember any other songs, but yeah, it's if you look at motherboards, there are all B52 songs printed on them.
Me and Ben are a bit sad. We're discussing getting Commodore logos tattooed on us.
No, you're discussing it, Paul.
I'm trying to encourage you to be.
I'm a die-hard Commodore fan, but I ain't getting your tattoos.
I think now you're hitting that 40 age, Ben, you probably could do with one of those turbo buttons tattooing on you instead.
You have to tell me what that's like, Phil, 'cause I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, not far off. Right, okay, so Mark's saying in chat Red Alert was cool on BNC Network. Ian's saying he had a Dragon 64 as well. I'm just trying to think what sort of games I would have played back then. Cannon Fodder, anyone remember that one?
Yeah, great game.
Sensible Software, another great software house.
The intro music, War has never been so much fun. That's a great thing. I used to love gaming on my Amiga. Lotus Turbo Challenge, Lotus 3, do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Lotus Turbo Challenge 2, that was the best one.
No, that had great theme music as well. I really enjoyed that. I used to play a flight sim called Bird of Prey. That was proper blocky polygon graphics. That was good. I used to enjoy playing that. So obviously I'm quite into my aircraft, so I quite enjoyed that.
That one I remember is F-18 Interceptor, was it?
Did you start on a what do you call it? Was it based around San Francisco and you started on an aircraft carrier?
Yeah.
And you flew around long enough, then an enemy would turn up and you shoot them down. And for some reason, you could put your engines in reverse. And yeah, that's a strange.
I can't remember the reverse bit, but yeah, it was trying to land on the aircraft carrier was.
It was a pucker, wasn't it? It was horrible.
It was. So this was another classic as well. This came on about 16 discs, I think it was. It's
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones.
Indiana Jones and the
Indiana
Fate of
Jones.
Atlantis.
Fate of Atlantis, yeah.
It's a point-and-click game, isn't it? A bit like Monkey Island.
It is.
Never
You
played
made it
it.
on PC, and you got the VGA graphics on the PC, so it's slightly better graphics on the PC version because PC was sort of overtaking Amiga by then.
Yeah.
But yeah, about 16 discs, and again, it's another of those point-and-click nightmare games. That's 5 disc swaps between the screens. So
Well, they've just released another Monkey Island game, haven't they? Supposed
yeah,
to take
they have.
come after the first two. It's Ron Gilbert's done it. I think it came out on the 19th.
And again, you got Mark Dennis talking about Red Alert back then, and then the precursors Red Alert was, of course,
Nah,
June.
I've
June
in
2.
hours talking about June because I'm a very big June fan. Film, you know, Carl McLaughlin was the best Paul Atreides, if you ask me. I'm a bit hardcore like that. June 2, I was phenomenal at that game. I spent hours on that, and the original June as well. I got quite good at that.
Well, they were seen as basically the first sort of
June
like Panic
2000.
style games, weren't they?
Were they
Yeah.
point and click?
Yeah,
I
and
know
there was
that was-
actually like
No,
driving around with different vehicles. It was like based on the June universe, you know, Arrakis.
RTS type games, aren't they?
Yeah. And
Oh.
very, very limited though. You could only like point and click and move one single troop at a time. You couldn't group them like you can in Red Alert. And yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing for the Amiga, going for the Amiga, is the selection of software you get. I mean, you get other stuff like, who can forget the old Lemmings?
Lemmings, right?
Lemmings.
Game
From the studio that bought you Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, you had Formula One.
Game made design, became Rockstar.
That was kind of like the Worms of its day, wasn't it?
Yeah, you got Worms on the Amiga.
Worms,
You got
Worms was a great
stuff like
game. Lost many hours on that.
Super Skid Marks. Who doesn't remember Super? That's not what it sounds like.
Acid Software, I think, made that game.
Sensible Soccer.
Ah,
Yeah.
sensible
That's
stuff.
Sensible
Yeah,
Software
yeah,
game.
yeah.
Sensible Art of Soccer, the best
Yeah.
football game ever made.
Phenomenal. Speedball.
Yeah,
Speedball.
Bitmap Brothers
too.
games,
Speedball too.
music, everything.
And then you had other stuff like Alien
Tower
Breed.
Assault, yeah.
Oh, so, okay.
That was
What's
the
been
alien,
your-
alien breed, was it?
Alien Breed Tower Assault, yeah.
What's been your favourite game ever and why?
Ooh, that's a
Oh.
good
I
question.
couldn't name one.
Mine,
Never.
Desert Strike.
All right,
Desert
and that,
Strike.
all right. I'll rephrase that, Peter. What's been the game that you've played the most that probably means the most?
Oh, I don't know. That's really difficult. As well. I mean, I lost
So
many
many.
a school holiday to XCOM Enemy Unknown.
Oh yeah, XCOM games.
Maybe because on my Amiga 500 with 7 megahertz, if you played the Terror missions where there's about 20 aliens on the map, that one. It would take maybe half an hour to calculate the aliens' turn. So you'd move all your men,
Yeah.
get them perfectly positioned, hit to end your turn, and just sit there and wait. And then 5 minutes will pass, and you'll hear a gunshot from alien. Then another 5 minutes will pass, you hear another gunshot. Then half your men are dead. But then your turn. You do your turn in 2 seconds. Hit end turn. You wait for it to calculate the alien's turn. But these are brilliant games, and it got remade in 2012, and the remake they did was really good. But my son plays the original in DOSBox. It's really strange, you know. He's 17, but he really loves that game. Can almost play it. He knows more about it than me now. It's scary.
Yeah.
So it's
The
like a
terror-
cycle. These things come back round.
The Terror from the Deep was the second one, weren't it? Or something like that. Which is
Reskinned under
basically,
sea.
yeah, it was exactly the same, but they just pretended you're underwater. They just added a few bubbles here and there to make it look like you're underwater. But
Yeah.
they did a few other ones, didn't they? Like Interceptor, I think it was, or something, which they were a bit
Yeah.
iffy. Isn't it strange how games a lot of the retro games, you used to buy the games depending on who actually the actual person was, like Chris Sawyer or whoever was who made the actual games rather than anything else. It was a bit like a movies now, like being whoever the director is. It's like, oh, I'll go and get it because it's done by that director or whatever. Where the games, it was, it's been made by him. So
It'll be good.
Bullfrog Studio. Who remembers that?
Bullfrog,
I
that's
do,
all the
yeah.
theme games, isn't it?
Theme Park.
Theme Park.
Yeah.
Bitmap
Oh,
Brothers
Theme
games,
Park. What a game!
Magic
What a
Pockets, James Pond, all those sort of all great games.
Awesome.
Do you remember the copy protection you used to get in those older games?
Yeah,
We used to copy the discs, the old the code books that you couldn't photocopy. They were like a brown on grey. Some of them had some really good ones. I think Monkey Island had a wheel you spun to line up the pirates' different faces and things, and the game would load. You'd have to go and look up the right code, that sort of thing. You got any more? Oh, that one's good. What's
Yeah, I
that?
got that one for
Yeah,
Zil.
that's
You had to like line up the
Zool. That's Zool, yeah.
line the character up to the correct colour on the screen and the correct ninja. And it was a shame because, especially for Commodore, piracy was just one of the major things that just killed them off because discs were so easy to copy, pirate protection was easy to copy, and yeah, that was it.
It was really weird when you say pirating games because I remember me and my mates used to try and dub tape to tape on like music boxes, and half of the time they never worked. And I always remember my mum bought this really cheap Matsui tape to tape, cheap Japanese thing.
Did that work really well then?
And it copied everything. It used to do. There was something to do with when it was copying, it would emit that noise like and it would copy it perfectly. But you get a Sony or like a Philips or a Panasonic one, real high end stuff, and it wouldn't do it. Just wouldn't do it. But those cheap ones used to copy them perfectly.
I was quite lucky because one of the guys my dad worked with at BT was quite prolific in the in that scene. So I ended up with quite a lot of games. And one of my memories is firing up a game, and before it got into the game, there was like a splash screen with
Crack by or patch by
music, like Fairlight Group.
Yeah.
And you got that. And cool music. And that's what sticks out the most in my memory for me about retro gaming as a kid.
I think there was a game what had probably the worst copyright protection, or probably the best, was the original Civilization, because the manual was like about 300 pages long or something daft like that, and it'll ask you. It only did it when you started the game, started a new game. It would say, right, go to page 200, third paragraph, third word, second. It was like, obviously back then I had. Sorry to say it, but I had a pirated version of it. My brother copied it me, so every time I wanted to start a new game, I had to call my brother and basically say, "Hey, what's page 200, paragraph 2, word 1, or whatever it was," so I could get the damn thing to work. So I ended up buying it in the end anyway. But I think there weren't many people who had an Amiga who didn't have any pirated games.
They used to come in boxes like about this size. Do you remember when you buy a game and there'd be a disc in it and a manual, and it'd come in a box that size?
Yeah.
I don't know what game it was. There was one game, I can't remember what it was, but if you pirated it, the developer had put some copy protection in where it knew it was a copied version, and the game would be different. The ending was different. I don't know what game it was, but something. Yeah, they had some way of knowing that if being copied in a certain way.
That was a few years ago, not too long ago, weren't it? Was it like Game Maker or something?
I can't remember what one it was, but they deliberately done something really clever.
Yeah, it was like
ruin it if you got all the way through.
Yeah, I think you got a game studio or something like that. You got sort of like halfway through, and then suddenly it just ramp up the difficulty on you, sort of thing, because it knew you got a pirated version rather than just playing it.
Yeah, I think it was like a 2000s game or something.
But it might have been another one as well. But yeah. Anyway, looking at the time, we've gone past that hour mark. So let's have a quick go through chat. So there's only really Mark who said anything. So
Horace skiing.
You go skiing.
Played it.
So that's another one. But there's that many different games, and so they're all popping back to me. Railroad Tycoons and different things like that. There's lots and lots of stuff that evolved from back then. I think the one probably what started it all for me was generally the Populous, probably 1 and 2 and stuff like that, which were really stood out for me. Right. Let's do final thoughts. Go around the room. Ben, do you want anything to add before we finish the show?
Oh, Amigas are great.
Don't have anything to do with Amigas.
Oh, I'm all talked out then.
Yeah, go on then. Say something about an Amiga.
No, just invest in Amigas. They're great consoles and they're going up in value. Go buy one before you're too late.
Yeah, so it's probably worth more than the British pound is at the moment, without getting political. Let's move on to Ian. Have you got anything you'd like to add?
Answer my own question. Really, the game that means the most to me that I played the most was Bubble Bobble. Many sessions with my friends. They had whatever console they had, we always played Bubble Bobble. and I played the arcade. I just love that game to death, and that's my favourite game that brings back happiest memories of my childhood.
And to yourself, Peter.
I think retro computing's great. To see what we've got today, it's nice to see what came before, and what everything we've got today is based off of. It's what got me into computers. That first family computer, and some of the game memories as well. I think Bart versus the Space Mutants, all those sort of games from the Cartoon Classics Amiga pack. Whoever said that, was that you, Paul? Yeah. So all the games in there, Captain Planet, all those sort of games.
Yeah.
Small game studios as well. I think Another World was a game that blew my mind.
I remember that.
And I saw a documentary not long ago. I bought the 20th anniversary edition, and there's a documentary, and it's just one guy and his brother made that whole game, and now games, GTA 6 is going to be like a $200 million game. And it's just fantastic where the industry's come from, from people's bedrooms effectively. So it's a great hobby. I'm going to certainly be getting into it more and trying to collect some older stuff before it becomes unaffordable.
Mm.
There we go. That's pretty good. And to yourself, Paul.
I've got a couple of things to say. Number one is going back to Bubble Bobble, Rainbow Islands.
Oh,
Do you remember Rainbow Islands?
amazing game.
Yeah.
And Dizzy. Do you remember Dizzy, the little egg?
Dizzy series.
The small
Treasure Island Dizzy was the best.
Yeah, it was. Was it the Oliver twins who made the Dizzy series?
Oliver Twins.
Yes, yeah, Oliver Brothers, wasn't he? Yeah, I think.
And just going back to the old cartoon classics, I've spotted a Facebook private message from Ben a minute ago. It's YouTube video of that advert I talked about, the cartoon classics advert for the Amiga with that tune on it. As you've been watching it on site, just brought back some memories. I want to say thank you, Ben.
You're welcome.
Nice one. Right. I think we're going to have to call it there. I think we've all had games that we've enjoyed in the past and retro things. I can remember things like Stunt Car Racer, Settlers, SimCity, stuff like that. I even like still playing, well, not SimCity, but equivalent games, City Skylines and stuff like that whenever I get a chance. And even going all the way back to Tetris and Prince of Persia and God, there's many games out there, and as you said, so actually a lot of these games was made by one person or a team of 2 or 3 people in the bedrooms and so forth, and it was normal for everyone to copy the games because you couldn't actually buy most of them in the shops anyway. No. So it was basically everyone just copied them at school usually.
Sunday market.
That's it. So, but obviously, this day and age, we do not recommend you pirate any sort of games. That's another one. Chucky Egg, I remember that one. That was my mother's favourite game, if I remember right. So, obviously, you got Donkey Kong and all those as well. Right, guys, we're going to leave it there. We do have a show next week. I'll get you the information about that up in a few seconds. But we are on every Thursday night at 8 o'clock, or well, as long as people don't pull out at the last minute, that is anyway. The show we have next week is, and again, I need to get clarification of how this is pronounced, is with Nakivo, which is basically regarding data backup, cloud backup, and stuff like that. So they're actually going to be on the show next week. They are actually based in Ukraine, and the guy who's actually going to be on is actually obviously in Ukraine. So obviously we're a bit dependent on that one, as long as nothing drastic's going off over there for obvious reasons. Not mentioning any specific names of any specific Russian people or anything. Right, guys. So that's next Thursday at 8 o'clock, and obviously we'll have lots of things going off. And as I said, if you haven't already, do the nominations for the Tech for Tech Awards. The link's there. It's techfortech.co.uk/awards. Nominate yourself, nominate your friends or your suppliers or other vendors you like. There's lots of awards. There's 22 different awards to be won this year. So make sure you get those nominations in, because they will close on Monday night. Not Monday night. So what day is the first? They're going to close on Saturday night. So any nominations after that, too late. So make sure you get that done. And to finish the show off, I'm going to leave you with this.